Welcome to the CCWD regular board meeting on Wednesday, September 12th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rebecca, can you take roll?
Director Strange?
Here.
Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Thomas?
I am here.
Director Hendrickson?
Here.
President Crowder?
Here. Item 2 on our agenda is public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agenda item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment today? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We've got 3 items on the agenda. 3A, approval of minutes for the board meeting of August 8th. Review of the board director's monthly timesheets for August 2018. Approve the cancellation of regular board meeting of September 26th. Ratify claim summary 558, secretarial fund in the amount of $3,260,073.43 for August 2018. And item 3E, approval to amend Appendix A of District Policy Number 507. Now, this is a conflict of interest code.
I'd like to pull 3D.
3D like dog.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to pull 3C.
Okay, 3C and 3D will be pulled for discussion.
Move for acceptance of 3A, 3B, 3E.
We got a motion of accepting 3A, 3B, and 3E. Looking for a second.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Rebecca, you take roll?
Director Strange?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Hendrickson?
Yes.
President Crowder?
Yes. We'll go for 3C first.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm going to be gone, I believe the first, or the second week of October. So I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything that we were in jeopardy of not having a quorum for something specific, so.
On which day, Director Davidson? On the day in October or in September?
In October. Let me look.
Your meetings in October are scheduled for the 10th and the 24th. You'll be missing, which one?
I'll miss the 10th.
So we might be punting some items too from the second September meeting to the first October meeting. And anyone else, if the rest of us are planning to be here October 10th, any other problems with anyone's schedule?
No.
Is that it? And 3C?
Yeah, that's it. Move for acceptance of 3C.
Second.
Becky, take roll on 3C?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Hendrickson?
Yes.
President Crowder?
Yes. Ruth, take-
Oh, yes, on 3D. When I saw that amount, it just was deja vu all over again. We haven't had that kind of a claim summary in a long, long time. So I called and I flipped over. Joel and I reviewed some of the things, but I did call Jeff to get an overall, and it's not anything specific, it's just the amount of money.
It is significant as far as dollar amounts, you're right, 3.2 million. And that happens generally every August because our debt service payments come due in September. So we have to write the checks. And it's debt service on our capital R&R loans, and it's also assessment district debt. That is not debt of the CCWD. It's a debt placed upon the property owners, yet the funds are channeled through us and paid to the bondholders. So when you look at that, of the total dollar amount of $3,260,000, 44% of that is associated with debt service payments, 1.45 million.
and that is only once a year.
You have principal and interest payments in September and interest payments in March. So you get the big chunk of it in in the August claim summary.
Okay, so, and you said 1.5, approximately 1.5 million of it is,
Yes, 1,448,000 is associated with debt service. That's 44% of the overall 3.2 million.
okay.
That,
And we did also include in that is our FERC admin fees for 2017-18, which is 397,000, and that's reimbursable.
That was gonna be my question. That's we get reimbursed for that,
Yes, we do.
okay? And so how will that show up in the books? When it's reimbursed?
It nets out to zero. Because we pay for it because the license is in our name.
Right. Okay.
okay, and then I asked another question. I mean, this is like apples and oranges. What were we in August of 20?
Just about the same for last year.
Oh, I don't
In
need-
fact, debt service was
Wow.
50% of the total claim summary amount last year. Part of that was due to the fact that we still had our BBVA refunding loan last year, which was paid off in September of last year. So that's no longer part of the equation.
Yeah, okay, that makes me feel better.
Okay, thank you for being so prepared for that. Yeah, appreciate it.
I thank Director Underhill.
Okay, any further questions on that item?
I move to approve 3D.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second. Rebecca, can you take roll?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
President Harrell?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 4, new business. Discussion regarding meter sizing and capacity fees for residential fire sprinkler systems. Charles Palmer.
Oh, there he is. I'm looking in the audience thinking, where's Charles? He's right here. And Charles, before you get started, just to remind the board, this item was, this is something the board asked us to follow up on. I believe it was at our Prop 218 hearing in May that the issue was identified by Mike Limke, who's here today from Miramont Homes, asking if we would take a look at trying to do something in the way of some kind of an alternative for connection fees and rates associated with a meter larger than 5/8 inch to provide for, strictly for residential development that has to put in private fire sprinklers as the new legal requirement. So we've been working on this. It's at a staff level. We did brief the Finance Committee at its last meeting on this, and we've met twice. I met last week with Mr. Lemke. Also with, we've got Dana Sabota and Michael Evans, is that correct? From DeNova Homes, who are part of the discussion, and then we met again with them today. And there've also been representatives from the California BIA and our local economic development director to try to figure out a path forward on this. And we just met today before the meeting. That's why I came in right at the last second here. But what we bring today is to continue the conversation with the board, and we're not asking for an action. There's not a requested action today, but it's instead to get direction from the board how to continue with this. And I think we think that there are good reasons to continue to work on this issue, and we'll have a recommendation for direction and then a possible comeback at the next meeting or within our meetings in October to ask for the board to actually take action on this. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Charles.
Yeah, and there are quite a few, good afternoon. There are quite a few discussion points on this, so my presentation is just mostly focusing on some of the engineering aspects, and then Jeff and Dave and myself and members of the public, I'm sure we'll have some discussion points, so. This is just kind of a summary of our current rate structure and capacity multiplier. Our standard meter is a 5/8 inch meter. The next sizes up are 3/4 and 1 inch, and the capacity multiplier for a 5/8 inch meter is a 1, and then a 1.5 for a 3/4 inch, and a 2.5 for a 1 inch. So those goes into determining your monthly billing rate, your bi-monthly billing rate, and also the capacity charge. Those multipliers are used. So the vast majority of our customers are over 13,241 are on 5/8 inch meters, and we have 11 on 3/4 inch meter and 111 on a 1 inch meter. And so the fire sprinklers are required by a National Fire Protection Association Standard 13D. And the minimum flow you can have is 2 fire nozzles running at 8 gallons a minute and a minimum residual pressure of 7 PSI at the sprinklers. And you'd have a minimum of 2 sprinklers running in a fire. And then you also have to throw in an additional 5 gallons per minute as like a domestic demand on top of that. So you're looking at a minimum of 21 gallons a minute if you use, that's for low flow fire nozzles. A standard nozzle runs about 13 gallons a minute, so you're either at 21 gallons a minute or 31 gallons a minute, depending upon if you're using low flow nozzles or standard nozzles.
I think that term is funny, low flow fire sprinklers.
An oxymoron.
Oh, yeah. Only in California.
And I just drew this figure to kind of get some idea as to what the challenge is of what, when a fire sprinkler designer, this is kind of very simplified compared to their analysis they do. But, you start at 70 PSI of your water main. From the water main up to your meter, you might have 15 pounds of pressure loss. Through the meter, you have a 5/8 inch meter, you have like another 10 PSI of pressure loss. If we make them put a backflow device on there, you got another 12 PSI loss. The owner's line from the meter to their house, you got another 10 PSI of loss. If you got a 2-story house, you got, because of the elevation difference, you got another, 10 or 11 PSI loss, and all the inside plumbing, another 5. So you start at 70 at the street. By the time you get to the fire sprinklers, you barely have enough pressure to run these sprinklers because of the volume requirement. So about 21 to 31 gallons a minute. So it's challenging to design these systems. And this was just thrown in to kind of compare, our current meter, 5/8 inch meter. It's hard to read this, it was in the agenda, I don't know. It's limited to about 20 gallons a minute. So let me see if I can get that. So this is our standard meter, a Neptune T10 meter. This is the standard meter we use. So 5/8 inch meter is good to about 20 gallons a minute, which really doesn't get, the necessary fire flow you need. The next up from that would be 30 gallons a minute. So you're just barely meeting the requirement. In fact, because the people that design the fire systems are registered engineers, and if they're looking for 31 gallons a minute, they will not stamp a set of plans that has a 3/4 inch meter because they don't want to accept the liability for that because the manufacturer doesn't rate it for the 31 gallons a minute they need. We also looked at maybe going to an ultrasonic meter, which gets you about another 5 gallons per minute and just gets you over kind of the minimum necessary for, like a 3/4 inch meter would get you the fire flow you need for, you need 2 at 13 gallons a minute, plus the 5 is the 31 gallons a minute. So if you have an ultrasonic, it will get you to where you need to be. And that's a consideration because for the future, we're looking at these new radio read meters, so this is something we're going to have to evaluate in that process before we make that decision to move forward with that program. So next steps, we've had discussions internally, and we're thinking possibly we may need to do some supplemental engineering analysis to evaluate, the effect of just to get an second opinion from a professional engineering consultant on what the engineering aspects of this may be. Do we need to have amendments or supplements to our master plans? And then there is concerns about that our rate structure is based on a 5/8 inch meter. We just got through our whole rate study, based on a 5/8 inch meter as the base meter. So, there could be legal challenges in trying to establish equity among our customers is a concern. And, and then the question of, how do we adjust our capacity fees? So, and that is a study also that's coming up, is we're gonna be looking at all our capacity fees for Jenny Lind, Lock Antenna, that's sewer, the Copperopolis, and all our other service areas.
How many of the 1-inch meters that are in existence are residential?
I should have anticipated that question. Robbie, do you have any guesses?
Yeah, I don't have an absolute number for you, but it is not very many of them.
Yeah, so the vast majority are commercial. Commercial. Or master meters.
So the question really that we were presented by the builders was, they need a meter that has a rating of at least 31 gallons per minute. Obviously, the 5/8 inch meter does not do that, whether we stay with what we've got or we go to the ultrasonic, the newer technology. Either way, you can't get a rating that's 31. So their request is to try to gain access to a larger meter for the sole purpose of being able to build to provide for the private fire sprinkler, but to be able to do that without having to incur all the costs, both on the initial connection fee for the larger meter and the ongoing charges. Really, the base rate, the calculus, the multiplier in the base rate on ongoing rates is the additional cost. And so that's what we've been spending a lot of time on trying to figure out, okay, how can we do that, and how can we do it in a way that would be withstand any scrutiny should anybody challenge us on it. And unfortunately, the reality is, we know, the communities that we're in is there's always a real risk that you can be dragged into 218 litigation. Eldorado Irrigation District's in a case right now on the differential between their ag and their residential rates, and AWA went through that in the recent past on their drought surcharges. So we want to make sure it can withstand scrutiny, but the underlying request makes a lot of sense, why they would be asking for this, and why we would try to find a pathway for this. There have been, obviously, as they pointed out to us, many agencies that have created a different customer class, a carve-out to be able to do this. So where we're at is at a staff level here with this discussion is, we really believe that to make the change, we need to do the additional analysis to make sure that everything's on solid grounds so that it will withstand that, and it's not speculative. We've got, as you know, we're in conversation with Snowshoe HOA right now about they're making improvements to their system. They're adding fire hydrants. They're gonna have to go from a 2-inch to a 6-inch meter for fire flow. And they've been asking repeatedly why, what's happening in this discussion, because they believe that this affects what they should be charged. So we need to make sure that if we do this for the private fire residential sprinkler, it's based on engineering and financial analysis to substantiate a different class. And we think we can get there, we just think we need to do that. And so that's our recommendation. Now, ultimately, that's what I would like to collect going into the next meeting, is to get more information on what the scope and the budget for that project would be. We could potentially utilize somebody like HDR Engineering, who did our rate plan, cost of service analysis. They have, obviously, the engineering function and the financial expertise to be able to handle both of those. But the idea would be we come back within the next, in October with a scope and budget for that. I'm hoping that's a realistic time frame. If we had to go out and do an RFP, it'd take a longer amount of time, but hopefully that's not the case, as this is more narrowly focused. But conceivably, that process might require that we go through another 218 rate hearing to be able to make this change and add this different classification. So that's a consideration that we have to be.
Could it be specific to the change in class? The residential 1-inch?
Just for this, that is exactly. We do not want to go back to reopen all of our rates on all different customer. We've been through that. We just updated it. This would strictly be narrowly focused on this one particular customer class, creating a new carve-out for this to meet this need. Yeah. Just to let you know, we've looked at the other agencies who have made this change have done it in the same context, within a rate study, within a rate plan. As they adopt the rate plan, they've done this. Within that, we believe that is the appropriate way to handle it. But I think what we want to do is make sure that it would be narrowly focused to that one particular customer class, but that we do all the things we need to do to make sure that, you know, we can meet the needs, you know, years from now, that we are not in some way overcommitting ourselves to capacity to serve. You know, last thing we want to do is be in the position where catastrophic fire ends 30, 40 years in the future. There's that kind of event, and we've haven't calculated the impacts on capacity by allowing for a larger meter in this case. I think we can address that. That's why the engineering analysis is important, and it may not be, it honestly may not be as complicated as, you know, we could hypothetically come up with different scenarios. It may not be that, it simply may not be that complicated based on the fact that this has been analyzed by other agencies in the state. But we need to do that to show that we have done our due diligence and we are treating this appropriately. Because again, as you know, Charles mentioned, all of our calculations on rates and our master planning is based on a 5/8 inch multiple. So if we're going for this new customer class to provide a larger meter, we need to make sure that that's not creating unintended consequences that could get us in trouble later down the road.
Excuse me, can we go amendment on, you know, the 218?
The process we
You know,
just
to
went through.
To provide for this, or?
We can't, I don't
is
think
it-
we can reopen the one we just completed because it was finished and it really had nothing, although, I mean, and that's kind of the shame of it, but it's just the reality. I mean, it would have been great if we had this issue before us when we started that whole 218 process, and the financial analysis, as well as all the engineering master plan updates, but that doesn't preclude us from doing it now. And believe me, the idea of doing another rate plan and a 218 process is like the last thing that, you know, any one of us probably wants to do. But if there's a good reason and it's narrowly focused, this may not be quite as difficult a pathway as you might suspect.
Okay.
So.
And so numbers is what kept us with our rates, right? Because we're talking about 13,241 customers who use a 5/8 inch meter. And so numbers is what kept us where we establish our prices, right?
Our prices, I mean, that's the base multiple, being
rates,
that is
excuse
the
me.
most common. And, you know, and until these requirements came about, and then it became an issue, and I think it's more of an issue now that the economy is turning around and you have larger developments. You know, it sounds like this hasn't been so much of an issue for builders of 1 or 2 homes at a time, but when you're talking about doing a larger development, the critical mass, it's something that needs to be addressed, and that makes perfect sense to me. Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, I should probably wait until we hear some comments from these people here, but I feel compelled to respond to a couple of things that you said. To me, the snowshoe argument, it is inconsequential because they need a 6-inch meter, because once that fire flow system is put in, they're going to have to flow it periodically just to prove that it'll work, that they have the capacity. Whereas a 5/8 meter, going from a 5/8 meter in a residential application to a 1-inch meter, we all pray that it never gets used. And if I could design a meter, I would have it be a 1-inch meter that has a flow restrictor in it that never has the capacity of flowing beyond what can flow through a 5/8 orifice, unless one of the sprinklers goes off, and then it would go to a 1-inch. And I think that if we would view it from that standpoint, all of this discussion about the 218 and, oh my God, you know, our capacity is going to be all out of whack, it's way more complicated than it needs to be, in my opinion. I think that if we, you know, if we just face the reality that it's a new requirement, it'll be 50 years before we would ever come up with 1,000 meters that needed to be 1 inch. You know, why not just face the reality that these 1-inch meters are not going to be flowing with any additional consumption than the 5/8 meters are currently? It's just way too complicated.
I kind of agree. I mean, when I think about this, it seems like there's a simple plumbing solution where you have a 1-inch meter going in, and then teeing off, and that goes directly to the sprinklers, and then teeing off that is a 5/8 restrictor or another meter that's a 5/8, it only applies to the domestic household use. I mean, because, it just seems to me that it's not that complex.
And just for the sake of, you want to talk about numbers, let's talk about numbers. In the event of a fire incident, the additional capacity that would flow through that meter might be a maximum of 1,000 gallons for the one house that's involved. Now, you talked about a catastrophic thing where 500 houses are burning. I don't know, that.
They're not gonna burn down from the inside out, they're gonna burn down from the outside in.
Well, okay, well, you make a good point, but David brought it up, and I just wanted to address it, that it's, I like to keep things simple, and let's not over-intellectualize this thing,
I don't think the 218 process is gonna be that big of a deal with what we're opening up for. Fine, a letter goes out to every one of our customers, but it's gonna be specific to an issue that only deals with new construction.
Right.
And it's not gonna affect those 13,000 customers that are here already. It's a matter of sending a letter out and waiting 45 days, having a meeting and setting a new rate for that particular class of customer.
But the thing that I'm hearing, though, is that everybody's pointing at the fact, oh my God, the 1-inch meter has a capacity of 2.5 times the 5/8.
And it does, and what Director Davidson pointed out, though, I don't think any more use is gonna take place, 100% of the time for most of the customers until one catastrophic event occurs inside one house.
But the way we're marching forward with this is it'll take 6 months to analyze the incremental
Well, no,
charge.
that's my question, is how long are we looking at to study this before this comes in front of us and this 218 process can start?
Well, we're already we've already committed to do an update to our capacity fees as soon as we get done with the last master plan, which is going to be presented, I believe, next month to the board. So we will be beginning that. We can certainly wrap that into it. I'm just going to tell you, I don't think none of the staff at this level feel comfortable making this call without some basis of information to support it from outside consultants who can provide that lens and partial look at it. Because I do think that there is a risk that, as simple as it may seem, there is a real legitimate risk that this may be challenged by somebody, and I just want to make sure that we're on solid footing and we have something to hold up to say, because this is what we spent so much time on when we went through the last rate plan, is in the world that we're in with 218, you have to have something to substantiate, a record to substantiate it. And I'm not saying to go through 6 months of analysis, but I think we can use the capacity fee study update that we're going to do anyway to include this on that end. And I think if we can narrowly focus the analysis for the rate side of it, and we'll also need to look at how this potentially would affect the master planning side. And I don't think it may not take that long. It may not, but I would sure be much more comfortable in making a recommendation for action once we've done those things. And then we know that the decision that we're making, and this is a decision in perpetuity, can withstand any challenge. It's probably not going to be challenged, less likely of being challenged. And if we do, we're on much stronger grounds to withstand that.
No, and I agree. I do think that we should, and hopefully the board agrees that we should do a little bit of outside analysis and have some outside experts involved with us in some sort of an expert report that provided to us before we do move forward. Director Strange?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here that I see, pressure and volume. And we're not discussing pressure, and I think we need to, or at least we need to educate our consumers. Because we have talked about the issues of needing pressure boosters in some of our lines and everything else, which tells me that we have low pressure or too much pressure to begin with. So if we have areas that are in low pressure that we're not, able to fix yet, and yet the diagram that was up there that talked about all the reductions in pressure from going through valves and this and that, that's just as big of an issue that needs to be addressed. And I think we need to educate our potential customers on that. But remember, this is only new construction. That's all we're talking about is new construction for the sprinkler code stuff. Okay, and so it doesn't mean we have to go back and do anything to all the other homes that are already online. We can push that aside, so to speak, and address new construction and new hookups. So it's a great opportunity to be able, like you were saying, look at setting up maybe a 2-meter system or whatever, a
Well, I mean-
bypass. But, so that's my issue. And the advantage too on this is that, I'm on wells. I have a fire in my house. First thing that goes is electricity in the well. Okay, and then I have no water to fight anything, Then, yeah. So the advantage our customers have is that they're on our system that stays pressurized and can produce water for them. And I think that that's a real advantage that, again, maybe we ought to identify, versus a lot of the residents that are on wells. And a fire system probably wouldn't work for them anyway, regardless how much of your home the county and state want to own nowadays by all of the requirements that they're throwing on us.
Well, that, on a house with a well, you end up having an independent, new construction be an independent 450-gallon tank that sits outside that's battery operated, and it's supposed to stay full and charged all the time. That's the replacement of the
Correct.
domestic. But I have one question, I'm sure we'll have, again, I think it's, to me, just in the basics, it's simple. You have a 1-inch line that goes directly to the fire sprinklers, and just on the other side of that is a 5/8, either restrictor or another 5/8 meter that only handles the domestic. Because one of my concerns talking about pressure is whether or not, the typical residential water heaters and dishwashers and stuff like that, whether there'll be too much pressure in some cases to actually, that a 1-inch meter may put them over the top. So to me, it's simple. You got the 1-inch line here, you got a T, you got the 5/8 going to the domestic source. And I just don't see beyond that. I mean, I recognize that if we have to be specific about the class, I'm happy to go through that. There's a simple plumbing solution to this. Now, whether or not the legal solution is as simple as the plumbing solution, I'll let you guys handle that. But the plumbing solution, in my mind, is simple.
It's still gonna require that 1-inch meter that we need to address legally and have a different class for it.
Yeah.
Capacity. for
It's a stagnant system.
Right- right
It's
now, or-
it is not an active system. There is no way that we can charge extra money to justify just having a meter sit there. And, what do we have? 10 house fires a year in the county?
Well, I think that's where we're gonna get to. We're gonna have it studied, we're gonna do a 218 process most likely, and then go that route. I don't think it's something we should do independently without doing the outside study. What I wanna ask, before we go to Bertha and Russ, is this problem was in front of us 2 years ago. And with, a builder,
Why didn't you handle it then?
a builder contacted me, we did. A builder contacted me, and we brought this in front of us. We invited him here, we had these discussions with him. We came up with a sheet of facts and provided it to the building department. We had copies of it sitting on our desk, on our counter. And what's the difference now than then?
I think
It was still,
what we're,
this law didn't come into effect this year.
yeah, what we're hearing is that the difference is that it's the economic driver, that there's larger projects underway and that are coming online, and it's a little different economic scenario when you're doing, several dozen units as opposed to doing 1 or 2 at a time, maybe a small builder who's working independently. So I mean, that makes sense to me. I understand, and certainly the idea of trying to keep cost down and find a solution to it. And there are examples, again, of course, where it's being done in that manner elsewhere. Why wouldn't we take a run at it? So.
All I want to do is make sure that Director Thomas was, he's telling us he doesn't want us to go all overboard, but I want to make sure that we understand what he's saying or how he wants to fix it.
Well, David used a word into perpetuity. I think that the most devastating thing that we could do is to put a capacity fee and a monthly charge on somebody's residential house that's gonna go on for perpetuity, where they're paying a disproportionately larger cost per month for something that they'll never use. That's my fear.
And that's the thing that we're discussing, to avoid that, what we're talking about is having this studied by outside to have a defendable, to defend our position and have it be in a defendable position where we can move forward with this, then do the 218 process, which we know we have to do to make this defensible, and then proceed. Jeff, you have something to add. You look good chomping at the bit there.
I see this as two processes. One is the capacity fees, the initial connection. What are they going to need? And from our discussions, based on the ultrasonic Neptune meter, the 3/4 inch works. That gives them 35 GPM. And so they don't have to go up to the 1 inch. They're going to verify that. We had very good discussion on that today and verify that. So that would bring it down from a 1 inch to a 3/4. There is the multiplier, there is the demand on the system. There are things, the modeling that Charles has suggested we look at and we do as soon as possible to make sure that we have a system adequate that can meet the demands. And they made a very good suggestion of working with the state fire marshal to see how other districts have done this. So we're going to go down that path. The other path is the rate side, which you're all familiar with, the Prop 218. We do it every 5 years, and we're scheduled to start that up again after I retire, but in 3.5 years. One of the things to consider is this. The biggest stumbling block, I think, to the actual construction of a new home are fees. You're familiar with them. You have TIM fees, school fees, water, sewer, all the different fees that are out there. Soon they're going to throw solar panels on top of that. That is a big, if you're looking to jump from a 5/8 to 1 inch meter, that's a huge jump. So we can go back and take a look at it. The jump from a 5/8 to a 3/4 is less, but we still have that fee analysis to do. On the other side is the monthly fees, the monthly rates. And it's about $28 a month more to go from a 5/8 inch meter to a 3/4 inch meter.
That's based on additional use.
It's based on availability to the system. Now, and I'm not going to argue about use because there's varying ways to look at. Yes, there's a lot more efficient fixtures in the systems and, to drive down consumption, drip systems, I don't know about lawns and outdoor use and those type of things. But if we look at it and say, you know what, we can possibly live with the 3/4 inch meter monthly or bi-monthly base charge for now until we do our rate study. That way we can then incorporate the new base meter into the rate study, what our neighbors have done, use that as the basis, and then create could be a blended rate or a similar rate for both moving forward and not have to reopen the 218 process. I don't know what it's going to take. That's where I've had some initial conversations with Sean Korn, HDR. He said, you got to determine what your base meter is going to be on the capacity side, connection side, then we build upon that. But Director Strange made a very good comment that a customer connected to our system has the availability of that extra capacity in case of a fire, whereas the others do not within 5/8. So there is that benefit there. And trust me, when you look at the fires, and even if it's just a one-off, that's a big benefit. And my comment to that is maybe we just go with that until we open up a new rate study. We can also ask Sean what we would have to do, but that's an option as well. And just focus on the capacity, the hookup fees, because in reality, that's the biggest dollar bite right now as far as affordability moving into a home. Because when you look at the monthly rates, the consumptive side of our rate structure is the same regardless of meter size. Remember, we did away with that? The prior rate structure had increasing consumptive charges by meter size. That's no longer applicable now. It's consumption across the board, across meter size. So they aren't going to get penalized on consumption for having a larger meter. They will it's just the incremental cost on the base rate.
Plus connection charge. Connection charge of 3/4 meter is, what, 50% higher?
Yeah, but that's where I said we need to go back and revisit that.
Right.
I'm
And
just
we're
trying to
doing-
separate out the two. I'm not saying we shouldn't go back and revisit that. We've got a process for that. But I'm just trying to separate the two items because I know 218 and the rates, as Dave said, EID's getting sued, AWA's being sued. I don't want to put ourselves at risk because when you go through a Prop 218 lawsuit, it's incumbent upon the district to shoulder the burden. In other words, it's all on us to, and all our legal costs. They can file for however minimal it takes, get an attorney, and then all the costs are on us. So I do believe we have to make sure that we minimize the risk as we move forward.
Yeah, I would like to move this item forward a little bit. We've had a lot of discussion about it. We got a month to look at it. It's going to be brought up at our first October meeting. I know we're going to have public comment on this, on this as well, and we'll hear a whole lot more in the first meeting in October. If everyone's okay with that, let's ask for public comment and move this thing along.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, directors of the board. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Mike Limke. My brother and I own Marymount Homes. We're local home builders. The current CCWD residential meter is not sufficient for new home construction without having to get creative out there, extremely creative. It is not a large developer problem. It's not a large home builder problem. It's any new home buyer's problem. Our new homes are extremely water efficient. Locally, we build to WUI standards, wildland-urban interface, much more fire resistant, and we have a much higher standard level. For example, if I were to come, we build all different types of housing for different economic sectors. If I were to come to you with a 1,200 square foot house that's intended for a low-income family that I'm participating with Habitat for Humanity, my design requirements are basically the same. I need to have 2 sprinkler heads, ability to fire off. And I agree with the laughing matter, a low flow sprinkler head is a joke. I need to have 2 sprinkler heads, that is 13 gallons per minute each, that is 26 gallons. And I need to have 5 gallons in reserve for the residential capacity, that is 31 gallons. That is a low income Habitat for Humanity small house requirement. The CCWD meter today doesn't properly take care of that house, let alone a larger development. Why haven't more of our local smaller builders been here? Well, frankly, because we still haven't gotten into recovery mode in Calaveras County. They're out there, we're out there trying to survive. We don't have the ability to attend all the meetings and hit every function. It just becomes, with the larger projects, we're able to tap into more resources, make better contacts. We have more exposure working in other counties. I haven't been to a single county or jurisdiction in California that has not already addressed this problem. Standard is a 1-inch meter everywhere else. Occasionally you'll have the 3/4-inch meters. The current 5/8 meter doesn't do it. The current 3/4-inch meter that we have in stock at CCWD doesn't do the job. We'd have to get a superior meter to that. I appreciate your continued diligence on this. This is a community problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Can I ask one question? Just from my, simple head solution, which is you take a 1-inch meter in and then have a 5/8 T off of it, if that's the solution. Is it a circulation issue? Is that why that wouldn't be as simple? Does the water have to flow through both?
I believe that we've already, I heard your direction there. We supply the house with a single pipeline. The large diameter pipe goes directly to the fire sprinkler.
And does it end at the fire sprinklers, or does it reconnect back up?
It goes to the fire sprinkler and never goes back to domestic.
Okay.
There is a check valve.
I wasn't sure if it had to circulate through the state.
Never through domestic. There is a T. We tee off that main line. We go to a pressure reducing valve. That way your domestic service, your ice maker, toilets, etc., are reduced in pressure. So we keep all pressure, all volume going through that meter to the sprinkler system, and we reduce the flow to the residential unit. We have low flow heads throughout. We have drip irrigation system. We cannot build high volume consumption houses as far as water goes anymore.
Yeah.
They've basically been outlawed.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Sabota. I'm General Counsel for DeNova Homes. Thank you for having us here today. To reiterate a little bit of what's been said in a slightly different context, we have a 92-home development that we're trying to bring online in Copperopolis. Right now, because of the way, we build exactly the way Mr. Lemke just described. There's a T, we feed a 1-inch line to our sprinkler system, and everything else gets low flow. We couldn't use 1 inch of capacity even if we tried with the regulations that we have. But the increased cost per home for a 92-home development, it's $18,000 just for us to hook up your standard 1-inch line, even though we don't really need 1 inch, except in the event of a short duration, highly unlikely catastrophe for a single event. About the same as if someone had a pipe burst in their house. I mean, we're talking about a very short-term issue. That is for a 92-home development, a $1.65 million cost. It's huge. That's a make it or break it in terms of housing costs in this area, right? People can't afford to have $18,000 added to the price of the home in order to accommodate something that the rest of the jurisdictions in the state have largely taken care of already. So this isn't a new issue. The building industry partnered with fire service years and years ago, and I just want to give you a little bit of context. The fire marshal for the state has offered to speak with CCWD, has offered to come, and this problem has been solved so many times before. They wanted fire sprinklers in homes. The fire marshals all over the country wanted fire sprinklers in homes, and the building industry fought them because we were going to have this increased cost, and we're in a housing crisis. It's very expensive to build, and it's really hard in California. But the fire marshal said, we'll partner with you. We'll go out and we'll explain that it actually, in new construction uses less water. And it's so restrictive that we really aren't concerned that you're going to be using 1 inch of capacity. We'll explain how things are built. We'll explain about the T, and we'll help you. And they did. And in jurisdictions all over the state, this problem has in fact already been solved with a change in how districts actually charge for new home construction. There's a little asterisk for some of them. It's a standard 5/8 residential, but if you are building new home construction with a sprinkler system, you have this T, you get your either 3/4 or 1 inch, depending on what meters are used for the jurisdiction. You pay your capacity charge and you pay your rates based on standard residential use. So it's been done before. We are here to help provide those resources. We had the California Building Industry Association already on a call. We've been working with staff, and we're incredibly thankful to have had that opportunity. What I don't want to see, and being a lawyer and having experience with your lawyer in the past, I don't want to see litigation threats drive what is a very practical decision. You've all basically said this is a simple problem. This is a plumbing issue. This is not a use issue. And we've already solved the pressure issue. I wish, Mr. Thomas, there was a regulator that did exactly as you described. Unfortunately, what happens in a fire is power does in fact go out, and the regulator you described that someone tried to build actually requires technology that has power associated with it, and the fire department doesn't like that. They would rather that we just do the T, and that 1 inch goes one direction, and that there's regulated use throughout. So I would ask that we be in conversations. We can get you all of the information from other jurisdictions. This is not a situation where we need to reinvent the wheel. It's already been done all over the state. We're happy to provide whatever resources we can to help support the data that we have, and anything that we can do to make it simple and litigation-free, we are on board. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Dana.
Good afternoon, Board, President, Vice President. It's a pleasure to be in front of you. We did have our meeting with staff, and I got to compliment your staff. Very open to negotiations, talking, jumping on this little problem with us and trying to get it wrapped up accordingly. I agree with the description. I was sitting in her chair, and what Director Davidson was saying and Strange and everything, it's exactly how we build the houses is basically we have a 1-inch water main. It goes directly to the sprinkler system, which is a dead-end system. And then we put a 3/4 inch line off of that, and that's an outside diameter, which makes it a 5/8 inch inside diameter to the house. So the flow is still just a 5/8 flow to the house. What I did is just some of the jurisdictions that we work in the state of California, I got their flow and rate sheet for meter sizes, just for an example, so you guys can have them. I'm going to give you a little thing, but I've done the city of Fairfield, city of Antioch, Contra Costa Water District, city of Petaluma, the city of Vallejo, city of Manteca, Diablo Water District in Oakley, California, and Pittsburgh, California. So I just want to leave these examples with you so you can kind of see the way these jurisdictions kind of set up the same thing. That's basically describing cohesively what you described about just adding a meter, changing the residential value. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
I'm not sure what you provided to us there, but it seems to me like what we really want is the language on their capacity fees and how they came up with the ability to switch the meter size, which you know, maybe other jurisdictions aren't. Maybe they're just saying it's a residential hookup, therefore it's a residential hookup, where we have historically charged by meter size. You know, if the meter is a 1-inch meter, it conflicts with our current code, with our current rules. And so we would prefer if we could get some information on how these jurisdictions, how they handled the capacity charge issue, not so much the monthly charge issue. Would that be what we're looking for? Or?
Yeah, I mean, certainly to utilize the best information we can get on what other agencies are doing, certainly, and how they got there. I kind of think we should differ with Jeff a little bit on this. I kind of think we should take on both the issues of the capacity and the rates, even if that means we have to go through a 218. Simply because I think it's in a lot of ways this makes all the sense in the world. It seems pretty straightforward, but I think we need to we need to make sure we're on solid ground when we come out with this and make a change to our policy, and I think we should do it holistically. If the rationale there for changing the capacity fee exists, why wouldn't we do it on the rate side as well? So that's what I would like to move forward at our level in trying to get a scope of work and budget for that effort. We can reach out to HDR for sure, possibly including Peterson Brewstad as well, and get our master plans, and then be able to come back to the board and at that first meeting in October with a recommended plan of action, and make sure that we could probably, based on the dollar amount and all, we could probably do it at a staff level, but I want to make sure the board is, exactly what we plan to have the consultant do, and the path that we pursue on the capacity charges and rates is something that the board is in agreement with as well. So we get started and we continue till we finish this.
All right, thank you.
Did you provide, this is something staff has as well?
Yes, I just let Dave know right before we walked in the meeting, I gave copies to Robert Creamer for you, so every staff has.
Because they do have fee schedules in here based on 5/8 and 1-inch, and they are different.
Right.
They are a little bit different, but if we could go through this, if you like, I could show you a few examples. The city of Fairfield came up to this, and what they did is they completely eliminated anything smaller than a 1-inch meter. And the price that they're charging is something they've been charging for, same price for the 5/8 way back.
Well, I don't think we
when.
need to go through this packet right now, and
Okay.
in the
I
interest
understand.
of time, we're got a lot of discussion
Understood.
so
Thank
far.
you.
And
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Wow. We already finished up here. We've had a lot of discussion. And we're going to be discussing it in October. And again, we will be discussing this again a lot in October. I anticipate a lot more discussion. We're going to have a lot of discussion between now and then. It gives us a month to go through this.
At least one more question.
Okay.
Are builders purchasing a 1-inch meter right now here in Calvert County for residential use?
Robbie, what are you seeing as far as, do you want to come up?
Robbie, come.
Robbie, can you come up to the mic? Thanks, man.
I like talking from the back.
All the requests.
We want you on the camera and they can hear you.
No, they're not. But we have had very little development. It's really just been one-off construction project. And for the most part, what those people have done is provided a pressure tank on site.
Even in these new developments that are occurring?
We don't, the developments they're talking about are some of the first to come online.
So you guys haven't started building yet? What?
We have not yet.
Okay. All right, I just want to have something in place, because if indeed somebody does come and we change our fee structure in 6 months, because I hate to have people, I mean, it's substantial, it's probably an extra 12 grand to hook up to a 1-inch meter as a 5/8 meter. And if somebody comes and does that, I'd like them to at least be able to, if we change our capacity charge structure in the future, that they have the ability to recoup that somehow. Because I don't want to be holding people up from developing while we're trying to get our stuff together here. If that makes any sense.
Good point.
Noted. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 4B, discussion action adopting the district's financial management policy, number 5.12, debt management policy. Jeffrey Meyer.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this item before you is something that I mentioned a little over a year ago to your board and to the Finance Committee, and it's a result of Senate Bill 1029, the accountability report bill. It's put forth by CDAC, which is the California Debt Investment Advisory Commission, and it updated Government Code 8855. Basically, it requires debt issuers, governmental debt issuers like ourselves, to have a very comprehensive and extensive debt management policy. Our current debt management policy, which is included in the agenda package, is 1 page. And it's not sufficient enough to cover the requirements that they put forth in this bill. Our proposal is to let me back up a second. The current management policy is 5.0. The district's current financial management policy, 5.00. We have 8 budget and fiscal policies, including 5.00.5 debt policies. I'm proposing that we just eliminate that one altogether and add a new debt policy, 5.12, because it is much more comprehensive and it wouldn't really fit into the current financial management policies within that scope there. What this new debt policy will focus on is the purpose of the debt and its use, type of debt that the district may issue, integration with our CIP plan and budget, policy goals related to issuers' planning and goals, and internal control procedures to ensure that debt will be directed and intended at use. It also adds to continuing disclosure policies as far as what do we have to do on an annual basis. There's going to be some more work to be done on that section. We address it at a very high level within 5.12. According to bond counsel Cameron Wiest, who helped draft this policy, we're going to come back at a later date with a much more comprehensive reporting and continuing disclosure policy and have that as a separate policy. This item was before the Finance Committee on August 24th. They looked at it, had questions, and I got an answer to one of President Ratterman's questions, and they recommended that it move forward to the full board for acceptance. And in response to your question, you had something regarding the tax code. And I talked to Cameron about that, and it's an IRS regulation about the 20%.
Okay, thank you. And the other question that I had in the finance committee meeting was Jeff had indicated that he had sent this to council for review, and only some minor changes were suggested and made, and even provided me with the email correspondence.
Are there any questions?
Move for acceptance?
Second?
Any discussion on this? Any public comment? The public pretty much cleared. Okay, Rebecca, you take roll?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Jeffrey. 4C, under new business, discussion action regarding refinancing of outstanding limited obligation improvement bonds and appointing financial consultants. I really like seeing these come to us. They're always good ideas and save money.
And it's very timely at this point because based on the bond covenants, we do have a window now open for repayment and refinancing the debt that's for the Flying Acres Assessment District and the Dolly Cassidy Assessment District. And this too was brought before the Finance Committee. We discussed it briefly at that point, let him know that I will be bringing it forward. For those of you who were not on the board in 2010, the Dolly Cassidy debt was issued a bond to finance improvements in the system. It was $990,000 with an interest rate average of approximately 5.80%, payments of approximately $70,000 per year till maturity, and these are payments made by the property owners. Again, assessment districts are not the burden of the district. In October 2013, there was a little over $2 million in improvement bonds for the Flying Acres Assessment Districts, which they replaced their water system, and they were incorporated or absorbed by the district. That has an average interest rate of about 5.5% and $138,000 a year in payments. Talking to Cameron Wiest, Bond Counsel, and financial advisors, we've done some initial looks at some of the numbers. We can go ahead and consolidate the debt, and they're referring to it as a 2019 limited obligation improvement refunding bonds with an average, if the rates stay approximately the way they are right now, and we're looking to close this in December, January at the latest, you're looking at an average interest rate of about 3.5%. Savings overall about $460,000, about $18,000 per year in average debt service. The initial cost estimates to be able to implement this is about $155,000. Our staff would be reimbursed. That also goes to the underwriters, the financial advisors, and bond counsel. And bond counsel, Cameron, is also disclosure counsel as well. Now, the question comes to mind is, can we do this? Does your board have the authority to go through this refunding without having to go back to the property owners? Because remember, when we did the initial assessment districts, it had to be by a vote of the property owners. According to the Refunding Act of 1984 for 1915 Improvement Act bonds, that's what these assessment district bonds are, your board has the ability to do so without a public hearing if 3 conditions are met. There must be savings in each year for each property owner. The assessment liens cannot be increased on any property, and the final maturity of the bonds cannot be extended. And we meet all 3 criteria based on the proposed refinancing package. So your board does have the authority to move forward with this. And as far as the second part of this agenda package, actually it's the key part of it, we need to have help doing this process. I need financial analysis help, I need bond counsel help, disclosure. So this resolution that's in front of you is the preliminary intention to proceed with the refinancing of the outstanding limited obligation improvement bonds and appointing financial consultants in connection therewithin. Financial consultants will be Wiest Law Firm and NHA Advisors. NHA Advisors, Norcroft Hill, I can't remember what the A stands for. Craig Hill helped us in the BBVA refinancing. No, I'm take that back. They were the financial advisors for the Flying Acres Assessment District. So I've worked with both, and you've worked with Cameron for a number of years. They have done a really good job of sharpening their pencils and driving down their quotes. And what I'm asking your board is to authorize us to move on with this refunding process and to enter into agreements with the Weiss Law Firm and with NHA Advisors to serve as municipal advisor.
You indicate that, that there's gonna be savings on all net costs, and that's in addition, and you say the net cost, that is in addition to appointing financial consultants and their costs associated with doing this?
Correct.
Okay.
The $460,000 estimated is taking into account all the additional costs of reissuance, the $155,000.
Okay.
And there's going to be some additional costs when we look at reserve funds and such, but that's the net savings.
But you did say that we would be reimbursed for approximately 155,000?
No,
Oh.
district would be reimbursed for about
That's what-
15,000.
Oh, 15,000.
That's an estimate,
Oh,
so
okay.
as we move forward with this, what I would do is put together a project and start keeping track of my time, so we'd get reimbursed for that.
Right, I remember that. Now, of course, I know where Fly-In is, and is Dolly down in Valley Springs?
Who?
Just the Delhi project.
Dolly Cassidy,
Dolly Cassidy.
yes.
Yeah.
So what's the downside of this? I mean, it can't all be positive. Come on, man. What are our
downside-
risks or what?
It's like a no-brainer.
Interest
Why
risk.
wasn't this in the consent agenda?
Interest risk. If the interest rates go up, the savings go down. That's the risk associated
So
with it.
we can't lock that interest in or anything.
Not at this particular point. I did get some rates, quotes for current market, plus 25 basis points, minus 25 basis points. Right now, the rates seem to have stabilized. If we wait any longer and the Fed looks to increase their Fed funds rate, the longer we wait, the less advantageous this will be, less savings, and we'll probably not be able to do this.
What's the break-even point? Say, and just because we hire these guys, if it does go up, it doesn't mean we commit to purchasing that, right?
Right. We have to meet the minimum thresholds of savings. So I'm looking at probably between 375 and 4 is the maximum we can go and still have savings enough for everybody to meet these requirements.
And the timeframe for this to get completed was what again?
December, January.
Because there's a good chance it will go up another 25 basis points by then.
Yeah. These are long-term rates. They've been going up a little bit slower than short-term. So, and the Feds deal on the short term. Right now, if we've got to act and kind of lock in, the latest rates I got were from last week and the projections of costs. So I'm pretty confident that we can get savings. The other thing is that we consolidate 2 debts into one for bond, and it's a little bit easier for us as a district to deal with that.
Notification to our customers or the people in these assessment districts, how do we handle that?
If we go forward with that, we can let them know that it's coming to a board hearing and do a mailer. But as I mentioned before, they're going to be saving money.
Well,
So-
I know
right.
that, but.
So there's 2 ways we can do this, and this is what I've been thinking. One is to notify them in advance that it's coming out, we're going to be discussing it. But until I have final numbers and be able to tell them how much they're going to save, and it's going to vary by customer too, because in Dolly
Or their
Cassidy, some of
assessment.
them had financed their connection fees too. So it's going to be difficult to say exactly how much each individual person is going to save.
Oh, okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You might provide the board with some background on all the things that we've refinanced over the years and the savings. I mean, I don't know if you know it off the top of your head, but, I know we've done this.
Right.
Particularly when rates, went down to nearly nothing. We refinanced, millions and millions of dollars at great savings to the people here in Calaveras County. I mean, that's something we've always been really on top of, and I just want to say I appreciate that. I love having these things come forward like this.
And what's nice is this affects, it saves money for the property owners. And that's important. For the 2 refinancing that I've done since I've been here, saved the ratepayers. But this is these are property tax liens or assessments that go directly on their property taxes. Just 2 quick ones. I remember we did the PERS side fund. We refinanced that, went from 7.5% down to 390 or 298, and saved $400,000 on that. And we did the financing of the 2004 refunding. That's the BBVA loan, and we got 1.58% on that. That went down significantly. So I want to take advantage of this while the rates are low, because they're not going to stay low for much longer.
They're headed up.
Okay, we're looking for a motion on a preliminary intention to proceed with the refinancing of outstanding limited obligation improvements and appointing financial
Move
consultants.
for acceptance.
Second?
Just one point that I wanted to make on that Delete Cassidy thing. As I recall, Jeff, there was a significant cost savings initially. I mean, there was contingency money in the proposal that didn't get spent. The property owners down there already got a significant reduction on the amount of money that they were anticipating spending.
That was, if I remember correctly, on Dolly Cassidy, it was pretty darn close to what we had, because we did it, we went through the engineering report, and everything else was there, and we knew what the cost would be. Flying Acres was different, because they had to finance the engineering, and we had to do that in advance. Flying Acres got refunds, I know that.
Well, Delete Cassidy did too.
I honestly can't recall, but
Yeah.
I don't remember there being, any significant overruns, if any. I think it did come in on budget or under.
Yeah.
Well, the contractor just really blasted through that. It was $75,000 or something. I mean, it was a significant amount.
I'd have to go back, and that was, like I said, 8 years ago.
You don't remember? Okay.
Good recall.
Call for a vote.
Okay. The Vice President is calling for a vote. But before that, let's have public comment.
I was asking you to call. I'm not taking over yet.
Okay, no public comment?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Let's take a short break before we get to Peter. Peter's got a couple items coming up here. What, 5 minutes? Thank you.
But anyway, I'm gonna drop my own grading plan, take it in, say, give me a yes or a no.
Yeah, that-
Okay, we're back in session, we'll go to item 4D.
Update of the Calaveras Public Power Agency. Peter Martin.
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. Your general manager asked me to pull together an update. I believe this was at the request of the board. I sort of tried to give a little background and some more timely updates on what's been going on with Calaveras Public Power Agency. In that memo, I didn't prepare a presentation or anything today. I just mostly wanted to highlight a few things in that memo. Mostly that the rate has been just recently approved, a lowered rate to 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour for the tier 1 customers. And then also, I did want to point out that was a significant decrease, because mostly there was a period where there was some lag behind the drought, where the idea was to rebuild up the rate stabilization fund that's been set aside as policy of that agency. Also, I kind of wanted to highlight, I did kind of break down the savings per year that's included as an attachment to that agenda item. And the last fiscal year, according to sort of the calculations that are used by CPPA, the Calaveras County Water District benefited to the tune of $1,352,000 and some change. This is a significant benefit to the district in keeping our operating costs low. And we are by a large amount the largest user of power of all the 30-some-odd agencies that are part of CPPA. So it's a, definitely a substantial benefit there. But I did want to, offer an opportunity if you had any questions at this point or wanted to understand anything better about what goes on with that organization. Actually, just one last thing. I did want to highlight that we're entering into the 4th phase of the energy efficiency program. The district has gotten some benefit to that. We actually recently, last year, redid all the outdoor lighting on the building with LED lights. They're 20-year lifespan, much more energy efficient. Through that program, it's a requirement that as part of our contract with the Western Power Associates that we have the energy efficiency program. And so a portion of the budget does go to that, and many of the member agencies do take advantage of that. And so there's another 3-year rollout of that energy efficiency program, which basically entails having a specialist come out, identify certain energy efficiency measures at facilities of these public agencies, and then further you just sort of contract to install those with there's a simple payback methodology that's figured into that. So.
Well, I appreciate this information because I really didn't best understand, that whole process and all. And so, yeah, it's the fact that it's New Melones Hydro, so I guess, again, that's other benefits that the Copperopolis folks and our rates being lower receive from New Melones.
Yeah, there's a significant loss of land as a result of New Melones being built. And so I think as part of that, that authorization for New Melones being built, there was some concessions to the folks that lived in Calaveras and Tuolumne counties for that. And that was one of those, that they get that first preference power generation from those facilities. So.
Yeah, I guess that's land taken out of tax roll or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, okay, cool.
I just see something interesting, and that's the fact that all of this is possible because of agreements with CalISO and PG&E, so that, that's...
Yeah, so obviously, power has to be conveyed through power lines at the local retail level, and then also when we're purchasing power from the grid, and then also the conveyance of that power through the grid. So we are beholden to those entities through these contracts, and it's a good deal in the end. I think we've discussed in the past, there are some concessions of that, and including the fact that we kind of talked about there's the no buyback clause in regards to like solar projects. I think that came up for the board once before. So there are some give and take things, but just the cost savings in general, trump that. And so essentially, if you wanted to build a solar project, if you have CPPA power at that facility, there's no net metering. So basically, PG&E won't take that power back. They won't pay you for it. So. And that's why we haven't done solar projects.
Okay.
So the rate stabilization fund has fully recovered as of...
Yes, the last fiscal year, we kind of knew that it was coming, and so therefore, we were able to forecast that rate reduction in the latest budget that CCWD adopted.
Okay, go ahead, Terry.
So are you saying that because we are a member of CPPA, that we cannot buy into a solar or any other program that reduces our electrical costs?
Sorry, so I mischaracterized that. So if you were to put in a large solar installation, and you say you bought a big, large piece of land, or say you had an undeveloped piece of land and you wanted to, you're welcome to go negotiate whatever contract you want with, say, a PG&E or somebody to make revenues off of that. However, if it's at a facility that exists that you have on CPPA power, say like a water treatment plant, which would be a good idea, lots of land and things like that, you cannot sell back the power at that facility as long as it's receiving CPPA
Okay, you can reduce your, you know, the,
Exactly.
yeah, ultimately your power usage,
But
but
you're-
you just can't,
Yeah, you won't be
sell
able
it.
to take advantage of
Yeah.
the times when, you know, you're cranking out a lot, but the facility itself is not taking, you know, so.
Yeah, and that's really one of the challenges of trying to do something like that, is just the economics. At 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour, those just don't pencil out to build a project like that to reduce our consumption of CPPA power, so.
I'm just, since hydro is not considered to be renewable power, how does the new proposal to take California off of non-renewables, how will that affect us in the future?
Dave, can you give me an assist on that? And it's SB 100, just.
Well, and as well as all power generated at CVP facilities like New Melones, it could be, potentially could be disastrous to large hydro production. So it's a big deal. We don't know what that means for us, to be honest. It's something that the Commissioner of Reclamation speaks about at conferences and stuff, how big a deal that could be. Yeah.
I would imagine there'll be an adjustment to the definition of hydro being non-renewable.
There needs to be an adjustment, but I don't think that's the one. Good Lord.
Multiple adjustments.
Any further questions, discussion for Peter on CPPA?
Thank you, Peter, for that.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, now we're going to old business, item 5A, update on actions of the East Side Groundwater Sustainability Agency and JPA.
So
Peter Moore.
I guess I'll stand up here. So yeah, I just got back from the meeting today down in Stockton, and just kind of wanted to give you a brief update of some of the activities of what's going on with that groundwater sustainability planning process. Last month, there was an open house down in Stockton. It was pretty well attended. About 50 members of the public attended, as well as our board members, our Vice President Thomas and Director Underhill. I think it seemed like it went really well. It was really loud in there. I think that was the major complaint. They didn't have any carpet in this, and so it was just everybody's voices reverberating off the walls. But that's one of 4 open houses, so they are going to move those around throughout the basin, and they are currently looking for other options. You know, I'm not sure if they want to come all the way out to Calaveras County, maybe like, you know, but maybe at the border or something, just to try to get everybody to come in the same place. But they don't want to continue just host them in Stockton so that everybody has to come. So. But there was a lot of information given out. I think, you know, mostly they were trying to show folks that there's going to be a new kind of online public interface that allows folks to look at, say, their parcel, various wells, and things like that, and gain an understanding of where they are and who their GSA is. And in addition to a lot of other information that's required as part of this process. And so that's going to go live pretty soon if it hasn't already. And so they were kind of showing that off. It has some of the neat figures like, you know, 3D pictures of well depths and things like that. And it's a pretty fascinating resource. So that's going on. There's a groundwater sustainability work group that's also working in tangent with the advisory group, which I sit on, and also the board as well. The groundwater sustainability work group is made up of sort of members at large in the community that are representing groundwater interests. Mr. Bob Dean of the RCD is participated in that right now, and that's sort of also collecting information that will feed into this process. So they're doing that as well. But otherwise, sort of what's been the focus of these groups right now is, as I mentioned, there's sort of these 6 undesirable results that are required as part of SGMA. And so a lot of it is baseline setting for the model, as well as you know, sort of setting thresholds for what those undesirable effects are. So right now they kind of started to characterize what the baseline for chronic lowering of groundwater levels is, one of those 6 undesirable results. At this point, they've kind of dialed that in. They won't continue any work on that until they get to the point where they start to characterize what sustainability is for the basin. So that's another piece of this whole puzzle. And then, so they'll be working right now to project out sort of demands and supplies throughout the basin, and sort of the approaches to meeting the sustainable yield over the 50-year planning horizon that's required as part of SIGMA. They are having a workshop on October 10th, which is the next meeting of the Groundwater Authority. And they will be focusing more on sort of developing projects and management actions that can contribute to going towards that sustainable yield. They don't really want conceptual projects. They seem to be more focused on projects that are ready to go, but that doesn't mean that those can't be discussed. So they'll be doing a brainstorming session on October 10th at that meeting, which will carry over into lunch. I'm told there will be a very modest lunch for everyone. And so that'll happen before, I guess, our next meeting. And I plan to attend, and I'm not sure if it's gonna affect your ability to be here for the next sort of board meeting, Director Thomas, but yeah.
There's no way that you could have even a peanut and get from there to here by 1 o'clock.
Yeah, right. So.
You're gonna miss lunch, huh?
I will, I always do.
I think we should provide the two fellows lunch on those days. That only makes sense.
No, that's.
Are you gonna like pack them a lunch or something? Bring it down just before?
I've depended on your cookies and your
No.
grapes.
Well, thank you, Peter. Any questions for Peter on,
I have
Go ahead.
Oh, well, okay.
We can just talk about
Russ and
lunch.
I-
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
Russ and I both attended, and I was, it was not a very big room, but every district or every member had their maps, and Peter went down with his maps. And so what I was most impressed with was the amount of energy that group has. It was, everybody was, right on, and I'm looking for great results.
Me too. And it was unbelievably loud. And there was one lady who attends each and every meeting, and she was sitting outside, and I asked her, why are you out here? She says, I can't hear myself thinking there. So it was pretty bad. But I didn't have a chance to go down this morning to attend the two meetings. Normally I go to attend the working group and also the joint group. But there was something in the materials that was distributed for the working group that I hadn't seen before. I mean, in the back of my mind, I have been asking myself, how are they going to come up with a formulae to make this groundwater level sustainable? And it's the first time that I saw it actually put on paper, is that they're looking or expecting, I don't know whether it's an expectation or a demand in the future, for groundwater pumpers to reduce their consumption by 10%. And that sort of struck me as being something that might be very, very difficult for a growing community that's dependent upon groundwater to reduce their groundwater consumption and also have any growth. So there's going to be some robust discussion about that in the future.
That's for municipalities and all, or ag, everybody?
All groundwater consumers. Which, have we received any kind of feedback about the VSPUD, about how they're?
So, yeah, actually, thank you for mentioning that. Valley Springs PUD, Supervisor Mills was there today, and he did reach out to the consultant, and they're gonna come up with a way to make contact with Valley Springs PUD and notify them of what's going on and the impacts and their role, and that they are indeed inside the basin. And so it will be, I hope that, maybe this beginning of dialogue with them, just so that they have an understanding of this planning process and how it's gonna play out over the next, several decades, I suppose. And then with regard to your mention of the conservation component to that sustainability, so yeah, they've kind of come up with a loose number for what sustainability looks like. That has not been settled at this point, but one of the ideas was that they would just kind of throw in that this is kind of the bookends of where you would need to be to continue to meet what they call sustainability of the entire basin. But that, there could be projects or other things that could shrink that. But I think today, the conversation, my understanding was not necessarily the existing folks, because folks are gonna conserve, especially municipalities, and the 10%, you had a question, is ag and municipalities. They didn't say how much of each or anything like that, but I would anticipate, we know that there are new conservation regs coming out as part of DWR's Make Conservation a Way of Life and the State Water Resource Control Board. 10% seems to me that that's gonna be probably met by existing. It's the new development. And so one of the discussions is how, if say you had a large conversion of crops, say from grazing land to crops, how those folks are gonna participate and help to meet whatever is necessary to continue sustainability. And that was just an open-ended question today, and it's a lot to be discussed on that too as well. So it seems to me that new development is where the focus is going to be with regards to pumping out of the groundwater basin. So.
Okay, we do have one facility in Wallace that I think does fall within this region. How will that be affected going forward?
I can't really tell you at this point. They kind of they're wrestling right now, or you can do something where it's almost like you create an adjudicated basin. Everybody gets every GSA gets their allocation of water, and that's that, and you got to work with that. Or you can create some sort of basin-wide objectives where there's a lot of goal setting and targets that are on a basin-wide, and so when things don't go well, then it becomes kind of more of a regional issue that needs to be addressed, or you have to focus. So there's two pathways, and they haven't gotten to that point. But my understanding is, yes, I guess curtailment could be an option. I don't think that that's a great option, and that's not what these guys are really focusing on right now.
At one point, there was a development, and I don't know if it's built out in Wallace. Are there empty lots for sale and that are available for service that could move onto our system and maybe eliminated or curtailed because of this?
I don't believe so. My understanding is that was planned another 2 phases for Wallace Lake Estates that didn't get completed. But it was always, the water supply assessment has been done, and the groundwater wells have been developed as if there is 400 homes there. So one of the things they did take into consideration as part of this long-term look at the demands on the basin is they used our urban water management plan.
Okay.
And so Wallace Lake Estates is included in that urban water management plan, and the idea was that there will be additional growth there over the next 20 years, and that was included in our urban water management plan. So.
Okay.
Well, aren't we to a certain extent using surface water in Wallace Lakes? No?
Not that I would admit to, but yeah.
That you won't admit to it?
A little leakage, you mean?
Yeah.
Underground leakage?
Excuse me, one of the things that I did was pick up a copy of all of the handouts, and I've already read this in case anybody would like to.
Jeff likes to take that stuff home for reading.
Can you file that for me, Jeff? I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Sounds like the price of irrigated ag lands going up and up and up and up, especially as municipalities may have to purchase them.
Well, but hopefully what it'll do is it'll encourage, the infrastructure investment to use surface water. I mean, that's the goal.
Or, well, yeah, especially for recharge.
Yeah.
Something
Well,
that can
even
be
for
set
the
up on a
even for the
road.
ag though, I mean, people that are still adjacent to the rivers that aren't that far away are developing. I mean, there's still thousands of acres being developed, within a mile of any of those rivers, and they're all going to groundwater. Theoretic groundwater, depends on how deep they go, but nobody seems to be regulating that, so.
All right, anything further for Peter? All right, thank you very much.
Peter dances pretty well there.
Going to item 7, board reports. Oh, no, general manager report, item 6 on our agenda.
Yes, I just wanted to note a couple of bills in the legislature as the session just ended. Some of these, I believe, are still sitting on the governor's desk. I don't think he's taken final action on them, but we do have a conclusion to some that we've been following closely. Joel's here to answer any specific questions about it, but there are the water tax bill, the SB 845, which was SB 623 from Monning. That was fortunately defeated. It died in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, which was a big win for the water community, for our effort with agencies all over the state and Aqua, and that got to give Joel a ton of kudos for that, all the many hours that were spent on this effort, and calls and letters to our delegation to make sure that we did everything we could to influence the outcome. So that was a great one, but we know it's coming back next year, I'm sure. It's just a matter of time. We also, the AB 2649 by Rambula, unfortunately that bill did die, was not passed into law. And that was the one to recognize groundwater recharge as a beneficial use under the California law. That was one, as I think we talked about, excuse me, at one of our last meetings about the changes that had been made to that bill to try to bring in a broader coalition of support with water agencies across the state. But that unfortunately at the end didn't succeed. We do still have a pathway through the State Water Board as they're working to create an expedited administrative process to allow for groundwater recharge and high flow events. So that's still a good pathway for water agencies that we'll keep working on. Lastly, we do, and this is probably the most concerning of everything that we're looking at, and that's SB 998, which passed the legislature. I don't know if the governor has signed it as of this. He had not, and Joel's indicating he still has not. But that was the one on the uniform application of shutoff requirements, which had a number of different things that could make it very challenging for us administratively to disconnect customers for non-payment. A lot of additional requirements that could add expense and could certainly require additional staff time. So we'll see if the governor signs it. We did send a letter. Joel's continued to work on this to the very end, to even sending a letter to the governor to request a veto on the bill. But we're obviously not in a particularly good spot right now with it that close to being enacted. So we'll deal with it, and as that is implemented, we'll have to understand and probably update the board on what those requirements look like. And with that, I want to also note we have a couple of different items. We have on the 27th of this month, Joel and Stacy are going to be holding a workshop, a public workshop on the rate assistance program, the development of that. We have a list of about 7 or 8 different people that expressed interest in being a part of that. They're going to be invited, and we'll advertise that as well. It's not going to be a notice board meeting. Board members, if we can certainly have up to 2 board members without noticing it as a meeting. If you're interested in attending that, again, it's on the 27th of September at 6 o'clock here. If you're interested, please let Rebecca know.
It would have been nice to know when dates were being planned and everything else, so I could get it on my dinner. This is the first I've heard about it, which is disappointing.
Well, we can reschedule it. If you'd like to reschedule it, we can.
Just let me know. That's all I sit up here for a reason.
Okay.
And that reason is to be educated, and so I can reach out with my constituents. So let me know.
Okay, then I would recommend that we reschedule it.
No, that's fine.
I'm not, because Director Street, you play a key role. Okay.
That's all. I just want to know. I mean, is that too much to ask?
No, that's why I think we should reschedule.
Can you not attend that day, or?
It's my birthday, but that's fine. I mean, I can attend that.
Just a reminder.
Okay, so now we got to figure out Bertha. We'll bring the cake.
Yeah, no. I'm getting back from a workshop in Arcata on the 26th, and so that works. If it didn't work for me, I would ask for it to be rescheduled for another time. We are going to have a workshop with the board at a notice meeting in Joel, do we have a date for that? Is it the end of October?
We're going to bring it to the Finance Committee on the 18th of October.
I think that's the third Tuesday.
come to the board can give comments, and then we'll incorporate the comments and then come back again for final approval of the policy.
So what board meeting will it come to the board?
It'll be the second meeting in October and the first meeting in November.
Okay, so that would be a workshop at the end of October with the full board. This was, honestly, the idea of this initially was just to do an informal outreach to the people who had expressed interest in it. And then Joel asked me today if we should think about maybe just having a wider notice go out about this. And so that's why we're expressing that now, because we had always intended to come in front of the full board and again, invite the public back to that as well. But why don't we, I do very much, because we want to get this done while you're here, Director Strange, because you've been a real important part of this. So why don't we debrief after the meeting and see if there's a way we can change the date to make this first meeting work for your schedule? Again, I think that would be helpful if we can. And then, of course, we will come back at the, again, we're targeting that second meeting in October for a public workshop on this too. And have everything done and implemented before the end of the year is still the plan.
The third Tuesday in October will be the 16th, so that is the next Finance Committee meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, we have a finance committee meeting
Next week.
Well, just because this is a public meeting, are you
What time?
okay?
I'm
6
sorry,
p.m.
Dave, what time?
Well, it
On the
was
27th, is that set
It's
up
6
for?
o'clock, but we haven't noticed it yet, so we can certainly, again, we can
Right.
certainly change it. Why don't we check
But
calendars
Terry,
when we
he
get
might
off
be
and-
able to make
Yeah.
it? or-
Yeah, 6 will work.
Yeah.
If it was any earlier as far as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I wouldn't be able, but yeah, the 27th, they'll work.
Okay, and
At 6 PM.
And don't forget
And-
the cake.
Okay.
I'll bring the
Again,
cake.
that's the first I've heard about it, so I
and
just,
first any of us have heard about it, so.
Yeah, okay, and how many of our customers are being invited?
So,
This is, again, as we were going through the rate hearings and everything else, we had a list of about 7 or 8 people who expressed interest in being a part of the discussions on this development of this program. So that's who we were going to be contacting directly. And then we again, this was literally, I believe, this morning that we had this conversation, that we were, that wasn't just supposed to be an initial brainstorming session with those people, with staff. It was not, we didn't contemplate that would include the board. We thought that we would then have that meeting with the workshop in October. And again, this morning, we made the decision to open it up, and so we would notice it so we could have anybody who's interested in the public who wants to come could come and attend that first meeting. And so that's where we are with it.
You know,
and again,
the other thing on this is this sounds like a good item to promote CCWD's working with the public and customers on, rate assistance. It might even be a decent public, outreach and a good PR piece for and invite, in a way to invite more of the public instead of that are interested. Well, not necessarily the public, more of our ratepayers that are interested in a rate assistance might have some input, additional input besides these 7 or 8 people we're talking about.
Mhm.
I mean, we're able to gather or grasp 7 or 8 people that happen to come to that meeting. I'm sure there's a lot of other people who have ideas and are interested in what's being discussed and how it's being discussed. And an opportunity.
It's gotta be really structured, however, because, you have to really, plan it out, because I can just see a whole room full of people, because as Terry knows, they all want input into how we set, or how we could possibly help them, and so we want to keep good control. I'd like to attend that, so I want to make sure that nobody else comes.
All right. Where are the straws?
It's gonna be tough keeping Russ at home on Terry's birthday.
yeah.
Anything further, Dave, on that, or?
Joel, did you have anything else to add on this? No, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to general board reports, information, future agenda items. Bertha?
Okay, let me start because fire, of course, is the biggest issue we have. I just love going home and seeing the signs that say, "Hi, fire possibility." But one of the things that I was alerted to yesterday is that Lloyd's of London is usually the last resort for, getting any kind of insurance, and Lloyd's of London turned down a homeowner up in Blue Lake Springs. Now, we don't know all of the extenuating circumstances of why they did that, but I thought that was very interesting that that's happened. We do have about 4 different insurance people offering homeowners, that includes fire, here in Calaveras County, so that's great. Because one of the things that's helping us up in Ebbets Pass is that our rating has gone up. I don't know, it's the TSO or it's not TSO? ISO. Oh, is it ISO? Okay, I read ISO, but yeah, so we're in the top 20% or whatever. Our rating is very high according to our fire chief, so that's refreshing, or that's good news. That's all.
Russ?
Okay, I just wanted to reveal that I went out of my district up to visit Bertha at the Ebbets Pass Homeowners Association, the Association of Associations, and what a fantastic meeting. I mean, the place was packed with a lot of knowledgeable people. In fact, I would like to encourage some of our associations down around Copperopolis to send representatives up there to see how that works, because it was really quite impressive. And then we went on on the 2x2 meetings that we were having with the folks from the water district in Murphy's, or no, Angels Camp. That's the UWPA. I keep those acronyms, just keep getting confused. But the UWPA, we walked the distribution ditch, and we walked out a significant way on the flume, which is not a comfortable place to be. When the wind is blowing, it's really quite remarkable that they could have built something like that going on.
Was Joel's name carved anywhere on that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was on the underneath side of one of those planks. But
From his inner tube floating days.
I think that our better understanding of the interrelated nature of our water distribution system is really going to be good for the county and for both agencies. What else? Anyway, I'm glad that our next meeting has been postponed or rescheduled, because I'm going to be following Terry's example and going on vacation, so I won't be around.
Going on a workshop, learn more about bats and monitoring bat populations with echolocation stuff.
Oh, man, that's great.
So,
anyway, so that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Well, go ahead, Terry.
I have 3 things, and one of them was questions about the outreach to the disadvantaged community and start, having the meetings that we talked about during the public meetings and all. And so that came up today, and I appreciate that. I didn't mean to get too gruff, but that is a very important activity for me to participate in. And so, yeah, I'd like to be part of any planning of that takes place. Not that I have to control anything, it's just to make sure that I can participate is really important. So the 27th at 6 will work out fine. Thank you. I also want to thank you on the notifications, both Joel and Dave, regarding the sheep ranch outage with the broken pipe, and how did that go? I mean, there were bottled water was being handed out, and I didn't hear anything from that, so I assume everything went fine.
Yeah, everything was repaired and testing done, and the negative results came back, so we're able to lift the order and back in line. It's just a challenge there with the lack of storage in a treatment plant that produces at such a low output that it takes a while to get everything back online to a level to be able to deliver.
Yeah.
So that's why we had to have the bottled water. But yeah, unfortunately, just one of those things that happens.
Yeah, well, good. But again, thanks for the heads up on that, and appreciate it. And the last thing is the Calaveras HCP, and the fact that it's pretty much being very close to being signed and done. And this was, what, a 12-year process. and it's huge, and this district has a significant role in the Calaveras River Habitat Conservation Plan. And so, you know, it would be, and I talked with Peter a little bit, and he's looking to get that scheduled possibly for the October meeting, workshop on what, you know, the process is and whatnot. Huge, you know, huge, I think it's the first aquatic HCP in the state, or it's one of the first. And so that's, yeah, that's significant. And my wife she's been involved with it all along from the beginning. And so for her, it's a significant lifetime achievement within that profession. So I'm looking forward to the workshop on that. That'd be great. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Director Davidson.
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Scott, would you talk about my water outage?
No. I just want to go through a couple upcoming events or upcoming meetings. Finance Committee meeting, Jeff, is September 18th, next week, 2 p.m. on Tuesday.
Yes.
Legal Affairs meeting on Wednesday, the 19th, 2:30. Okay, and then after, we do have a Mountain Counties meeting here at CCWD in this room at 10:30 a.m. on Friday, the 28th. We've been, last couple of years, we've been moving our meetings around in Mountain Counties to different member agencies. And CCWD usually has the September meeting, so that's going to be happening here. And also before our next meeting will be the party, East Bay Mud Barbecue, which will be on Friday the 5th. And that's all I have. If you have something.
Can I go back?
You got
We
one,
had a- we
you
had
got
a
3
water-
minutes.
We had a water outage, and I'm so sorry that it affected Scott's parents, because they have a home on Miko. Happened on Thursday, and we had to go through the boil water notice, and so that lasted I mean, what a weekend to have a water outage. But it was all fixed, and you came back on Tuesday and gave the lifting of the boil water notices. And we had an animal intrusion, and one of my customers said, "And how did that cow get into that water tank?" But Joe handled that, Joe and Dave. So,
Handled very well.
Is it a bird or a rodent or?
We think a woodpecker may have filled a hole.
And fell in. Okay, that concludes board reports, information, future agenda items. Our next meeting, we did cancel the September 26th meeting. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, October 10th, 1 p.m. here in this room. And we're going to go into closed session for two items, item 9A and item 9B on the agenda. Conference with real property negotiators and then potential litigation. And any public comment on the closed session items before we leave? Seeing none? We'll be back.
Matt, did you say camera was October? October.
Terry.
Yeah.